Yes.
Hey, Dr. Eddie, it's so great to see you again today. We're grateful for I know what the topic is today, so I'm excited to hear more about it. So,
Well, it's good to see you too, Tammy, and good to see all you folks today who are joining us live, and for those of you who will be watching this in its recording. And today it's really interesting. I was recently out in Boulder, Colorado. I was doing a speaking engagement, attending a conference. And as I was speaking, one of the comments that I made was about the idea of how we manage our addiction, and especially with the inner child model, talking about helping to manage the child, so therefore helps empower us. And after the session was over, someone came up to me, a colleague, and said, I'm struggling with this idea of managing an addiction because I don't think we manage addiction. I think we cure addiction.
mm,
Um, and so that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about that. Do we manage an addiction or do we cure it? So again, I'm very respectful to other people's viewpoints. But this one really what it did was it sparked within me this question, and that is, does the term managing addiction create this misleading image of a person being in this constant state of vulnerability? And if that is what it does, that's a very unrealistic image of someone who has successfully learned to manage their addiction. So that's what we're going to be talking about. But before we begin that, I want to take a step back and let's talk a moment about, can addiction be cured? Now, what does cure mean? Cure means I eliminate a disease state. Whether the disease state is in the mind or the body, it is gone. It's eradicated. Um, but that doesn't apply to addiction. It may apply to a lot of other disorders, but even take, for example, take hypertension. Okay, hypertension, if you have it, it's not that, oh, we cure your hypertension. What we do is teach you how to manage it. Same thing with diabetes. You will learn to manage that disorder that we have. And same thing here with addiction. We're not curing the addiction because I don't believe addiction is a disease. I don't believe it's a disease state. Now, that is a very much debated point, including the American Medical Association, which they define addiction as a chronic disease of the brain. But many others, including myself, we believe addiction is the result of behavioral, psychological, and environmental factors. Again, that's why I go back to, for me, the whole idea of recovery is going through your childhood. So we put that aside about the curing. I don't think that you can cure this because, again, there's been nothing that has been developed that's been able to prevent people from not having these addictive behaviors along the way. So therefore, let's go back to the idea of managing it. What does managing an addiction look like? Well, I think there are five different components that come into play when I talk about managing this disorder. One, if I have to understand and recognize that I'm susceptible to this, okay? Um, and I have an addictive brain, which means that I'm very prone to overstimulation. And therefore my reward system can get overactivated if I'm not careful. That's number one. And number two, I also have a compulsion disorder. And so therefore I can be more reactive than I am responsive. So therefore the need to slow everything down before just making a decision and thinking about it. So I have to understand that. Those are what the characteristics are here. I have an addictive brain because again, my reward system of area of my brain is very sensitive and can get highly activated. And the second part is that I have a compulsive disorder, and therefore, again, I'm more reactive. The second aspect of managing addiction is I need to make sure that I am strongly, strongly focusing on well-being, self-care. I need to be very attuned and committed to my mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual health. You can't stress this enough because, again, we go back to where we were when the addiction was active. We're not focused very much on how we're doing mentally, emotionally, and physically and spiritually. We're not listening to what our mind, body, and soul are trying to tell us. And they're trying to tell us something all the time, how things could be slightly off, how we might be dysregulated, and we're just not attuned to it. By becoming aware of this, of again, what's going on with my mind, what's going on with my emotion, what's going on with my soul, now I can pick up the warning signs that, you know what, something shifted in me. Now, that doesn't mean I'm ready to run off and act out. It just means that with something shifting, I need to work so that I can bring it back into homeostasis. Okay, remember we talked about the autonomic nervous system, the three different levels of that system, and how we want to always stay in an area where, again, everything is balanced for us. That's what we need to do, and I cannot do that if I am not making it a priority to make sure that my well-being is being managed effectively. So that's number two. And that concept is foreign to most everybody who has an addiction. Okay, before they get into therapy and they start to do that, they have no idea about the whole autonomic nervous system. They have no idea about the idea of what my mind, body, and soul are telling me. They have no idea that things are out of whack because that's just the way it is. So we just keep running with it. And what happens is we're then vulnerable. We're vulnerable to temptations. And so again, if you do pay attention to that, then therefore it's more likely the risk of acting out is extremely low. The third component, we need to understand and recognize what are those core emotional triggers. Yes, there are many types of triggers. There are visual triggers, there are environmental triggers. But for me, I am of the belief that the emotional triggers are the most powerful of all. So therefore, I need to know what are those emotions that activate my inner child, okay, and gets him to increase my anxiety. And remember, when your anxiety increases, compulsiveness increases. When compulsiveness increases, the likelihood of making bad decisions increase. If I understand what those core emotional triggers are, as soon as a negative event happens, I can match it up with to see if it matches with one of my triggers. It does. I know my kid's going to be activated. I can start working on it already. So now I'm keeping my anxiety at its lowest level possible. So again, this is really an important point. Number four, we have to nurture connection. You've heard it said many, many times that, you know, this addiction, when we talk about a sex addiction, a porn addiction, it is not about sex. It is an intimacy disorder. Okay? We are looking for connection. We're looking to actually engage with our emotion. We just don't know it. We don't know that. But that's what we're looking to do. And instead, we engage from a physical standpoint. But we really desire the emotional connection. As I said, we're just oblivious to that's what we're doing. So therefore, what's the real antidote to this? It is strong, rich connections and relationships with other people and God. Because what that does, it fills that void that you were looking to have the addiction fill. Addiction can't fill that. It comes real close. It almost works. You've heard me say that. It almost works, but you can't maintain it. It can't last. So you have to come back to square one again. So the real antidote for any type of addiction is authentic, rich relationships. And we have to cultivate those. Again, something that's not natural. We can develop relationship, but they're more on a 10,000-foot level, going deeper and having those rich, rewarding, the one that we invest in. That's very, very hard for someone who has an addiction. And then finally, it's about the idea of seeking help when needed. And we all need help at some point or another. Okay. And it may not even be that, again, I'm ready to run off to act out. It's just that, you know what? I'm in a bad state right now, and I need to pick up a phone and call somebody or reach out to someone, talk to my wife, whatever it may be. You have to be courageous enough to reach out before the temptation takes hold. You have to remember that it's not just, oh, I'm tempted. No, there's something else that goes on beforehand where, again, the autonomic nervous system starts to get out of whack. All right. There's something wrong. Or maybe from a physical standpoint, there's something wrong, whatever going on. And that's where we have to jump in and take care of it before temptations happen. Because again, there may be a shifting in our mood or our mental state, whatever, but there's no temptations around. You leave that thing, you know, out of place long enough and continue just going forward, eventually you're going to run into a temptation and it's going to look very inviting because, and you're not even going to know why, but the reason being is because you're not in a good place. So again, and asking for help is just another thing that we're not really, it's not a natural thing. If you look at all of these things that I've outlined here, all right, all five of those, they are not natural reactions or behaviors or mindset for people who struggle with addiction. We haven't done this before. We don't really know how to seek out for help unless we're trying to manipulate or use somebody. We don't know how to really invest in relationships and strengthen them. I'm talking about deep one. We don't know what really triggers us emotionally there. We don't take care of our self-care that we need to do. And we don't understand that the problem is I have an addictive brain and I have compulsive disorder. This is what I talk about managing. And again, the idea about managing your addiction, you have to understand, it doesn't mean you're battling it. Doesn't mean I'm on pins and needles all the time. In fact, for many who are sober, they don't struggle at all with temptations. It's just not there because when you prioritize self-care, you surround yourself with positive influences. What is it that you're going to put into your eyes, allow your eyes to see? What are you going to allow your ears to hear? What are you going to surround yourself with the people that you're with? Those are the things that continue to produce good fruit. Good fruit. There's no miracle cure for addiction. There just isn't. And I don't care what people say, no one discovered it. And I'm not sure we will, based on the research that has been done and what we see when it comes to, again, the other factors that I talked about before. However, what it comes down to is that to find long-term success is found by commitment. It's a commitment of being more mature and being more responsible as an individual. So my vote is when it comes to this idea of do we cure it? Do we manage it? I'm very heavily on the team of managing the disorder. So that's what I got for you today, Tammy.
Great stuff. I am going to put it in the chat. In fact, I'll hit send on that. The points that you shared, but I was thinking, like, even at the beginning when you're talking about, diseases and diabetes and stuff, I was like, even cancer, we say it goes into remission. It isn't, you don't say
Right.
cured. I don't know anybody that says my cancer was cured,
Right.
it's in remission. And I kind of feel like that with this is, and like, even at the end, when you're talking about, like I don't struggle with my acting out behaviors I mean, like, I just don't, now, but I also don't tolerate the lower vibrations of things, like I am aware if something's getting poked and I'm, I've got bandwidth issues or whatever. I do the self-care that I need to do so that I can, I can take care of it out here, not like, when I get into a really negative state. You're talking, we were talking about seeking help when needed. I've had multiple guys, addicts, who have said, I don't have needs. And that you can do a whole webinar on that, but it's one of those things where like they struggle so much, and I know that that's what, part of, why the addictive stuff is a maladaptive coping mechanism is I'm not allowed to have any needs, so picking up a phone and reaching out to, people is really difficult, but is really key. I love it when I hear people that are listening to the webinars and podcasts and all that kind of stuff, but when the problem is if that's all they're doing and they're not connecting with other people in any kind of real or meaningful way, and the hole in the soul that you're talking about. Yes. And you said, it almost works. And I'm like, but you also said, and then it doesn't. It's that temporary. Yeah, it feels it sort of temporarily, but it's never enough. There's never enough external stuff to fill that hole in the soul. And when you're talking about there's no cure, no pill, no whatever, I like if somebody said, you could take this pill and you'd be magically cured, I don't think I would even want it, because like this is good living, and if it pushed me back into disconnected living because I've magically taken the pill.
You went through a transformation.
Oh yes, and I
That's
continue. I
And
don't
you
take it
continue
for
to go.
granted. Yes,
Right.
yes,
And
yes.
if you took a pill, that's
You
not
don't
going to
change.
kill it. You know what
Yeah.
it is? It's like people high cholesterol, right? Pop the pill, and still eat the French fries, eat that. I mean, there's no real substance that's changing, no discipline that is developing, no maturity. And that's what I ended all this with. We have to become more mature individuals.
But here I know for sure that I'm not cured. So example, this morning I was out running. I am a little compulsive about like the number of miles I run. And this morning I had less time and I had to talk myself into it's okay to not get to this thing. And I was like, how ridiculous is that? But that's this thing here. And I managed to come back and I chose correctly, but that's a whole conversation I'm having in recovery. And that's just the way my brain is wired. So,
Before you were doing your work, you didn't have those conversations. You just went with the impulse of what, no, no, I have to,
and
I
I
have
wasn't running. Let's get real.
okay, I don't think so. I don't. But
There was
whatever
no
it may have
healthy
been,
stuff in what I was
right,
doing. So,
right. But
no,
whatever it was, you just went
yeah,
with the impulse
you
to do
betcha.
it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
There
again,
was no thinking.
it is about overall change. There's another thing I've been thinking about lately, and because I've heard this from various women over the years, and it's now starting to stick with me in a way, and I'm wondering, the messages that we're sending out, especially I look at, recovery for the betrayed partner that, okay, there's discovery, right? I'm numbed, I'm shocked, I'm so angry. Then we have disclosure, right? After disclosure, okay, now we begin the treatment, we begin the healing part of what goes on. And then after that, then we move to hopefully repair, right? That make pretty much sense what I got there? How many people are they're just in that healing stage and they can't get out. They just can't
Oh,
move over here.
I talk to lots of people who are, and it's painful that when people get stuck. And I keep saying, here's some lifelines, grab them, because
Right.
like there's lots of
Yeah.
options. And I get like this is not a judgment thing. This is just like, I get some people get caught in those loops, but yeah, at some point you have to go, I'm going to be brave and willing, and I'm going to step into this unknown, and I'm going, I don't know how this will all turn out, but I'm going to try. And if this doesn't work, I'll do something else, so.
Let me ask you this question. Do
Hmm.
you think, and again, this is what I've heard,
Hmm.
you think that, again, a lot of times those who are in the healing phase constantly, every webinar, every article, I mean, they spend every day, they're looking at different things. I wonder if we're delivering a message, not intentionally, but subconsciously, that he's never going to get better.
I sure don't. That would not be what
No,
like.
I'm not.
Yeah. Like, no, I'm always about hope for him, but it isn't. He has to get better before you can heal. Like
Right.
that is. I don't say
But
that
I
at all.
almost wonder, like I said, I've had several women say to me that, you know what, I feel that what I'm being told here is the way is that he's never going to get better.
No, that would
That, that
I can attest. We have 100 guys a week in our alumni group, from our residential
they
treatment
get
program that
better.
are keep showing up. Yeah,
Oh,
and
they get
they're doing
better.
good. Yeah, and
Right.
that's just part of the community.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, so no.
I'm actually writing a new article about, are we ever safe? And the answer is yes, we are safe. We can become safe. But for those women, and I'd be very interested if somebody wants to jump in with the on the chat or the Q&A and ask, you feel that sometimes that, I worry that he's never going to be that way.
Oh,
I'm always going to
the
have to stay
worry is
ahead.
there. Yeah, like the worry is, I don't think it's the messaging, but I can understand a partner going, is my person, actually doing enough? And you're right. I actually like when the partners, when the guys come to our residential program, I go have coffee with a girlfriend and don't talk about any of this. Go get a pedicure, go do self-care that has
Uh,
nothing to do with
right.
recovery, so that you are remembering that there's a
Yeah.
bigger world out there than just addiction. So
I think also the emphasis on, and I'm sorry, I know I'm sending us down a rabbit hole here, but the emphasis on if he's doing enough, looking at that versus if he's transforming, am I seeing change? I think
am I
I got
seeing with my little eyes? Yes.
am I seeing change versus looking nothing more than how much work are you doing? And I think we have to be, and again, we want to make sure, yeah, there's work, but the major focus, at least from my perspective, would be, is he different? Is he changing? That's what I want to see. I want to then be able to pick out, whoa, what's he doing good? And maybe let him know that versus just letting him know what I'm not seeing that's good. Because what you're trying to do is build up his sense of confidence, right? Because let me tell you, the shame is thick.
Yes.
It's
I
thick.
believe in rewarding good behavior. I mean, and
Yeah.
with whether it's kids or what, like, yes, compliment
So,
and appreciate the
so
positive.
here it
So
is. Here's Dr. Capparucci throwing out the controversial stuff once again. But
it, it's, and what I was going to go with, to me, the focus is I have to be internally focused. I have to take care of me, regardless
yeah,
of what he's doing or not doing. And if I'm doing that, then I can actually see I can see with a better lens. I'm not just focused on, the problems. I'm focused on, oh, I am seeing that there is some
But
positive movement.
if the message they're getting as they sit in their group and they're hearing, yeah, he relapsed again. Yeah, he didn't do this, what he was supposed to do. That never happened. It's like, oh my gosh, is this going to be my life forever? Is this what I'm going to be faced with? I could understand that versus, okay, yeah, sorry, here's some of the issues, but now here's that hope that you can have.
Yeah.
And everybody, and this is really, I think this is so important. If you're betrayed, if you've been betrayed, your story is unique. Your story is not somebody else's story. And if somebody's trying to push their story on you, you can't allow that to happen. You have to judge circumstances and fact based on your circumstances and fact, not what somebody else says. So anyway,
I'm going to tag onto this and then we're going to get to questions, but like I have a minor in statistics. I love math. And people go, what are the odds? And I'm like, you are unique. Your person
oh,
is unique. It does not
I,
matter. And in addiction, it is what are you choosing to do for your addiction? If you're going to stats, then yeah, the odds are probably not in your favor, but what are you willing to do? Because you can have 100% success in recovery, if you choose it and are willing to be all in on that. So barring like
oh,
extreme mental health issues, etc. So,
I-
okay.
okay.
Okay, so first question, Dr. Eddie. Most of my feelings of betrayal are directed toward my spouse, and we are working through things. But as I go further into the process, I'm also mad at some of his family members who abused him when he was a child and at bystanders who knew about his addiction. The hardest secondary betrayal for me is towards his last acting out partner. When I'm feeling empathetic, I see her somewhat as a victim, but I also see her as a conspirator since she knows me and my family. Thank you for this is such a great question. So
Yeah,
go
it
ahead and
is.
unpack it.
Well, I think so. There's a lot of things that are
Hmm.
here. One, first and foremost, you know what? It's okay for you to be angry because what you've seen, again, you talk about abuse. So again, that trauma, in some cases, it's not trauma. What it is their neglect, emotional neglect. And there probably was some of that too. But yeah, that shaped and molded him into what he does today. And that's what, through his work, he's trying to just break that apart, break all of that down and rebuild and transform into a different person for you. So to be upset and angry about it, I think it's perfectly normal. We're not going to want to hold on to that anger forever. That's not going to do anything for you. Now, you may need boundaries with that family because again, I don't know how much they still may be dysfunctional. So you may need boundaries with that, and that's okay. But or maybe they've gotten better, and if they have, well, that's where we learn to give grace toward that. Now, the second part that you had here was the secondary betrayal, and this is again because you knew this woman, she knew your family, and yes, that is another betrayal, and it's like double whammy that you have. So therefore, as you're doing your work, you're not just working to be able to, you know, see how do I get to a point where I forgive my partner for what they have done, but also here, how do you forgive that woman for what she's done? And that may take a long time. And forgiveness may be something when you get to that point and you're ready to do that, that you have to do every day because it still comes back to bother you. But I'm glad you see the fact that there is two different things that are going on here. Actually, three. You have him, you have her, and you have his family. There's three different aspects. But please do not allow them to overwhelm you so much that you don't do what Tammy was saying before, and that is focus on your well-being, your healing. Okay, that's where your real work has to be done.
Well, and I was thinking like yes, he did not grow up in a vacuum. So, broken people hurt people, and if we can be a bit magnanimous and go, yes, those people were probably doing the best they can, and it really wasn't enough. But he has the opportunity to break the cycle. He can transform, as Dr. Eddie was saying. He can transform and work on being, living a different way. And yes, the affair partner, it is difficult. There's often, and this will be a bit controversial, but often the affair partner and the spouse have more in common, with each other than, because they both have, hurts and pains and everything else.
Are
But
very
when
similar.
yeah, and if she was willing to do that, that's brokenness in her too. So again, not condoning any of the behaviors, but yeah, it feels like you have moments where you can take it up a higher level and not have to feel the pain. And it's good to have that kind of observer lens. But yeah, grief work, on lots of counts. But he is working to be in a different place, and that's hopeful, in my opinion. So. Okay, the next one, Dr. Eddie, I can't seem to process the betrayal. There is no communication between us or need for future contact, but sometimes I want her to know the cost of her actions. It feels unfair that she protected by being my spouse's fantasy, never having to exist in the real world. And now she's protected from destruction she participated in. This feels like she's talking about the affair partner. What helps
Yes.
partners like me to process and let go of that secondary betrayal? And how can my addict partner support me in this?
Well, let's talk about him supporting you. One and first and foremost, there's no contact. There's nothing going on there that he has really shown that he is remorseful for his actions and what he has done, that he is willing to sit there with you as you're going through and processing all of that pain. Those are things that he can do to support you in that. As you said that I want her to know the cost of her actions. That's an interesting line. I understand. Okay, there's an injustice that's been done, and she needs to know. Somebody needs to point this out to her. There could be two things that go on. One, she may very well know, and she may very well be suffering in her own way with that. Two, she may not care at all. Okay. Maybe this is part of her lifestyle, this is what she goes through. She doesn't give a damn about the consequences that other people may face. Therefore, you have to understand that either way, this is a very broken person. Just like your spouse is a broken person. She also is broken because she engaged in this type of relationship.
Did Dr. Eddie freeze? Oh no. Hmm. Can somebody put one of your hand up if I froze? I just want to see if I'm. Oh, there you go. Thank you. Okay, so it's Dr. Eddie. Okay, thanks. Working on getting him back. There he comes. Hi. You're muted. There you
Hey,
are.
what
You're back.
happened to us?
Well, it was
Yeah.
you because I was like, can somebody put their hand up? And I could see it. So I was like, okay, then it's you, not me. So anyway,
Wow, we lost. Okay, we're back. All right,
okay.
good.
Yes, I will put
Um,
this in because can you see the questions or you cannot?
Questions? Yes, I can see questions.
Oh, good.
Yep, I
Okay, good.
got
Yeah.
everything back.
Okay.
Got the number
Okay,
of
good.
people. A couple people fell off, but
All
they're
good.
there. Um, Empathy. You gotta have to develop empathy for her brokenness, and as well as just for his brokenness. And again, doing it for your sake of healing. Okay, because you know what? She's not worth it. Not worth you having to suffer what you're feeling right now. To understand that, you know what, a broken individual, that I just need to allow that to go. As I'm not saying today, but I'm saying in time as you do your healing. But that's where we ultimately want to go with that.
Okay, so the next one, my cheating spouse continues to speak insensitive and or disrespectful comments to me. I usually trigger and or get angry and lash out. He then tells me I'm crazy. I'm on at the end of my rope. Please advise how to proceed.
Get out. Get out. You're at the end of the rope. First of all, he doesn't give a damn. Okay? He is insensitive. He is uncaring. He is a louse. Okay? Because here it is, and I'm sorry to be harsh, but again, I have no tolerance for this. None. Because everything that you're outlining that he's doing, he should be doing the opposite. You are not married to a goodwill person. Because a goodwill person would understand the torment and the pain they put you through and would be doing something to help. Now, I know if this guy's listening or he's going, you don't know the other side of the story. You don't Now, you know what? I know there's another side of the story, and I know she may not be the most pleasant woman in the world to deal with and all of that, but still, there's no reason for this type of reaction. So you ask the question, how should you proceed? I'd say you get out. There you
Ditto.
go.
Okay. My SA husband's spiritual leader told him that once he elements his triggers, he will no longer be an addict and will never act out again. I don't believe you can element triggers. You can only deal with them. We are separated because he is unwilling to do any recovery work or CSC said. He only wants to speak to his spiritual leader. I feel
Okay.
unsafe with this plan. My husband and his spiritual leader think I'm being unreasonable. Am I wrong?
Oh
Nope.
no, you are not being unreasonable at all. They're the one, and what he's doing, he's hiding. He's hiding. He's hiding behind again this spiritual leader in order not to do the self-reflection that's needed and required to be able to transform and grow. And if he's not going to transform and grow, you have no hope of being able to be in a relationship with someone who can protect you. You don't have it. You are vulnerable. You are completely vulnerable. And I mean, if that what you want, if that what you want to live, how you want to live, being vulnerable for the rest of your life. Okay, and Kevin will tell you, I'm not an advocate for divorce. I don't push it with people. But when I look at this, when I see these last two, and I just see callous men who are self-centered. It's all about them. And it's like, why would you even want to be in a relationship with somebody like that? Well, we have kids together and it's been a long time. And I believe, again, let's go back to those areas of, healing, okay? What happens or of betrayal, okay? Discovery, healing, and then all of a sudden, and then over here is repair. In this healing phase, I believe the strongest, one of the most important components that a person has to come to the grips with is the idea that, you know what? I may want this relationship, but I don't need it. If you don't get there, you will never be fully empowered. You just won't. You will not be fully empowered. And if you're not fully empowered, you're not going to be able to deal with jerks like this. That's what you need. You have to be able to get to the point where it's like, you know what? Yes, I'll be sad. I'll be disappointed that, it didn't work, but it didn't work because I'm the one. It's because he didn't have enough respect for me to be able to do what I needed.
I put the Empowered Women's Retreat link in the chat. It's on our website too, but that whether you stay or go, that's a healing experience. And I would encourage you. And, Dr. Eddie, you mentioned the children, we stay for the children. And I always invite people, as you're considering this, what are you modeling for your children? Is this the
Right.
relationship that you want your children
Yeah.
to have as a future? Because that's what they're seeing. The earlier question was like his family was a hot mess and like, look what happened. And so I'm going like, you can interrupt the cycle. but just keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, it doesn't change. So I'm glad you're sharing that. Okay, so that earlier comment where I said, yeah, I've had a couple people who said I can't identify what my needs are. What are some good places to start looking for these? That's a great question, because I'm serious. Like, so many addicts are closed off with like, well, I can't have any needs. Those would not be okay. So,
So do we think this is from somebody who's dealing with the addiction, or is it someone
oh, I'm
dealing?
confident. I'm I'm
Oh,
I'm
okay,
pretty,
okay,
yeah. Like, the only,
okay.
I'm not saying it couldn't be a betrayed partner, but to me, it, like, this has always come up with addicts, and
Well,
it's,
all
yeah.
right. So I think first and foremost, you have to start out with the basics. Okay. What are the basic needs that we have? Marlowe, who was a psychologist, came up with what did he call it? What needs? The
I
pyramid
can't
of
remember.
needs. The
Yes. Okay.
pyramid of needs. Okay. I would start that. Marlowe, Marolow, pyramids of need. And I would start there, looking at that. What is there? The other thing I do is I would spend time, and you can do this with your therapist too. And the idea of what are passions that I have, or if I look back to when I was younger, what are those passions that were stifled that I don't recall anymore? And start looking at those. I mean, for me, when I was very young, I wanted to be an entertainer. I wanted to be the person who was out there doing this. It got stifled. It got really, really put down, and it didn't happen. Um, Although I did do community theater as an adult as later on, so I was able to
I,
do some of that. But but here, this is what you need to do. You need to, again, you start with the basics, and it's not something you're going to sit down and you're going to knock out in several hours. This is something that's going to you're going to go on like maybe a year-long process of looking to identify needs, because they're going to pop up, at different times. You're going to find, oh, wow, you know what? Now I understand I need this in my life. Okay, I really do need that best friend, which I didn't think I needed. Okay, because that's the thing. There's going to be many things that you're gonna you cut them off, just like we cut off emotions. You cut them off too. I don't need that, and actually, you do need it, and that's why you have to do the self-reflection so that you can really start to understand. So I would always put it as, what is it that you think you don't need? Look at that first also, and then see, is that true? Is it not true? Why is it that I say I don't need that? And maybe it's like the idea that, you know what, I don't need emotional engagement. Okay, why is that there? Why do you have it there? So this way, then you may find out, yes, I actually do need it. So that's where I would begin.
and the next question it kind of tags into this. It's like, how do we express our needs, when setting boundaries work with a betrayed? So let's say we've now identified our needs. How do we express those with
Rest
our loved
them.
ones?
Right. Okay. So two ways, two of the most important ways. One, validating first and foremost. Okay. You need to validate them, because by validating them, what you're doing, as opposed to just throwing out your needs, because if you just throw out your need, what you're going to get back is, this is all about you. Why is it all about you? It's supposed to be about me. It actually is supposed to be about us. Ultimately, that's what it's supposed to be, about us. But the idea is, well, let me take a step back. These needs that you have, there's a time and place for everything. Okay. In this early stage of discovery, and even in this early stage of healing for her, you're not sit here and throwing out a bunch of your needs. Okay. I'm sorry. That is not the time or the place to do this. It is as you get further into the healing process that you can be bringing them up to them. And again, it is about that idea of vulnerability, to understand you may not get the reaction back that you're looking for. Okay. You may not get that reaction. You may get a negative response to it. But the point is, what you're doing is you're planting the seeds. The best venue to be able to present your needs or boundaries is, and yes, people who are betrayers can have boundaries, is in a counseling session. That is the best format to be able to do it. Because this way you have a third party who can sit there and start to either one, tell you why that's not really appropriate, or the timing's off, or two, show your partner, hey, you know what? That's very reasonable, and we need to be able to incorporate it. So that's where I'd be one, identify what those are, but then I would be looking to bring them up in a couples therapy.
I think having that safe space and to really, because sometimes just being curious of like what's behind that boundary, like what are you looking for, and okay, so this is what you're looking for, and that there could be a better way that would be more helpful and mutually agreeable.
Right.
So navigating that space with the help of a professional would be good.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah, I mean, you hear this complaint quite often from those who are betrayed. Say, I have needs also. I want to be not sit here and be humiliated day after day after day. I mean, and I can understand that. And therefore then I always go back to the partner to say, again, what are you trying to ultimately accomplish here? If it just to beat the hell out of him, if it just to punish him, or is it that you ultimately want to get to the repair? And if you do, then speak in terms that just talk about your pain versus sitting here and, maligning people.
So you've had some feedback on the question you asked for partners, and so I'm going to ask a question as a follow-up. But this is what it says: as a betrayed spouse, I absolutely feel that the videos and webinars I hear on this platform that I will never be safe, or the slip or relapse can happen at any point in the future. And that is not the message. But if that's what someone's latching onto, how do we help them? Because that is absolutely not. I mean, I'm on most of these
Mhm.
webinars. I know that is not
Right.
the messaging.
Right.
But if that's what they're focusing on or latching onto, how do we help? Help them see
Uh,
that's not it.
First and foremost, okay, there has to be time when we do these things where people are going to be expressing, just like we're doing right now. We're giving
Mhm,
people the opportunity to express where their
mhm,
mate is not doing what needs to be done.
mhm.
But I also hope that what we do is that we give you some hope. Okay, that we give you a sense of hope, like what I just presented at the beginning. Okay? No, there's not a cure, but you can very, very, very effectively manage. And she and I are perfect examples of that. Okay? And so therefore, I think there's also the idea that we make sure there's always a part of whatever we're doing that helps to inspire within the betrayed partner. Oh, so my story could be different. Yeah, I know. You just heard Ann talking about how she's been doing this for 4 years and he's still, slipping and sliding all over. But yet, here, let's talk about this case, or let's talk about what this really means. Therefore, you could understand again. That's why I went back before. Your story is unique. Your circumstances are unique. It is not the same as everyone else's. That's what I think, Tammy.
Yeah, and I think if you're always externally focused on what he's doing or not doing, it will feel like you're never going to be safe.
Oh, yeah. Right.
But I know lots of people who, like the example you just used, I still living in the relationship and have they're they're okay regardless of what he's doing or not doing, because they're not, their happiness is not on the pinball machine of like, well, whatever he's doing, then it's like, I'm okay, I'm taking care of me, and what he's doing, like obviously it'd be great if he got into recovery and things could be different from that standpoint, but I'm not, just rocked at every, moment and hyper vigilant, having to pay attention to what he's doing. I'm going like, this is my life. I'm taking care of me, and I'm going to live my life in joy and serenity. You can do it. I promise. I know lots of people who do it, regardless
I'll
of whether they stay or go. So,
I'll give you a perfect example of what we're talking about, right? Couple client, this happened about 3, 4 weeks ago, right? He's been sober for 3 years now. He's been doing all the work. He's doing great. His wife even recognizes, said, yeah, I've seen improvement. He's more engaging. Well, he was very drained from a lot of work that he had been doing. And again, this is his fault because he didn't do what we were saying before about taking care of himself, making sure that he doesn't get too depleted. Well, he was really drained, and she was talking to him, and they're having a conversation, and it was about just normal stuff. I think it was about finances, okay? And he turned to her at some point, and he goes, "I can't deal with this anymore." They walked away. That was a totally inappropriate way of handling it. Where did she go? You're no different. You're still the same.
mhm,
You're always going to be the same. You're not changing. You know what? That's inappropriate too. It's not true. It's not
mhm,
true at all. But that one thing becoming so triggered to her, and then he later on he realized, oh my gosh, you know what? I was at a bad place. I shouldn't have done that. Whatever. But we're so quick when we see the one thing that goes on that all of a sudden, oh, see, they're right. He's never going to change. He's never going to get better. No, you know what he's not going to be? He's not going to be perfect. I am not perfect.
nor am
And
I. None of us
if you,
are. I don't
no,
know
if
anybody
you,
who is. Yeah.
but you know what? If people get the impression because I have answers that I'm perfect in this, oh, I'm sorry. I am deceiving you. I am not perfect. And like I said, I could bring my wife in and let's look at the list. Okay. I'm not. But what I do and what I want guys to do is, ooh, you know what? That was not good. Not good. And I just happened last week. And we were in the car and I said something. It was like, she goes, you're kidding me, right? And then there was just all this silence. I'm sitting there saying, you really should apologize. I don't want to apologize. No, but you really should apologize. No, I don't want to, you know, apologize. And I did. I apologized.
Sincerely too.
And then
Like
I got
you got yourself to the I can. You could
right.
do it with
I'm
sincerity.
wrong.
So yeah,
It was
yeah.
with sincerity. And of course, then I got, oh yeah, sure, you're sorry, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I just, yeah. And I didn't go back with, I said I was sorry. What else do you want? Just like, no, bring it on. Do it. I deserve that. So no one's going to be perfect. You can't all of a sudden just throw out, the baby with the bathwater, as they say. Understand that he's not going to be perfect. And when something like that happens, all you have to say, and it's very simple, that's disappointing. I expect different and walk away. Now, if he sit there and said, well, I don't really give a damn what you expect, that's something else. Now we have a different story going on. Most guys are not going to do that. They're not going to double down on it. So,
Okay. So the next question. What would you recommend to a betrayed spouse if the PA has faked recovery for 2 years while trickle truthing? He did fake empathy, podcast videos, journaling, therapy, changes in behavior, all while still lying or betraying. After disclosure with Polly, he now claims he feels to be in true recovery.
uh, what do I recommend to you? Because again, I don't know if he's in true recovery. I recommend caution. You have to be very, very cautious here. 2 years is a long time to be putting on that facade that I'm doing this work. Now, again, maybe he's changed, but this is now up to him to demonstrate it. And he has to demonstrate it in part by communicating to you what is it that he's learning about himself. More importantly, he has to be showing no defensiveness You have to be showing a great deal of patience, have to be showing a lot of validation. You have to be able to see that from him constantly. I mean, a consistent thing. And when it doesn't happen, again, point out, disappointing. But I would also be wanting to know from him about check-ins or more along the lines of, so what have you learned about yourself? What have you learned about recovery? What have you learned about my pain and my hurt? And you should be getting a lot of different answers, if he's doing all the things he did. So anyway, what I recommend is be very cautious.
I agree that, you hear me saying we're almost out of time, so I won't go on, but healthy boundaries for you, regardless of what he's doing or not doing. So, and somebody down in there later says, we can stay, we can say if it serves us, we can still be empowered. And I agree, like in fact, next Wednesday, I'll give a little plug for this. Next Wednesday, it's the 5th week of the month, and we have a special webinar with 2 partners. Debbie Allen, who co-hosts the Betray Partner drop-in group on Wednesdays, is hosting, and one partner chose to stay, and one partner chose to leave, and they're just going to share some of their story, and so if that's of interest, please come. Again, we are never. We're not in your shoes. We don't know what's right for you. We can, Kristen Snowden a couple of weeks ago did 10 questions to ask to see, if like it's just help. We're giving information and resources. It's your life. We can't. Okay, so to bring your last point into a question, as an addict, is there a way we can tell our partners, when you send me the 30th article about addiction in a day, I hear I'm never going to get better? I can appreciate that she wants to give me tools to help my recovery and to help her feel safe, but there are times when I feel like I'm getting a message that she has no confidence in my recovery, and that it takes time to engage in any activity that isn't explicitly recovery related. I'm somehow in a relapse. This is a great question, and I hear both sides of it. So thoughts?
I do too. I think first and foremost, for you to understand and see, and as you said, I appreciate her giving you the tools for recovery, okay, and to help her feel safe. What is her pain point? It's fear. It's fear that if he's not doing this, he's going to relapse. That's why this is happening. So therefore, doing that, making sure, therefore, you have empathy for why this is happening for you. The other aspect of it is, I think you do need to be vulnerable if you haven't already to say, look, you know what? I know why you're sending me all this stuff because you're afraid that I'm going to relapse. It makes perfect sense. It does. If I was in your shoes, I'd probably be doing something very similar. However, I have to tell you that I'm getting a message that's frightening to me. And I wonder if you can help me sort through this. Okay, you're asking permission now. Can you help me with my pain for a moment? And that is, I feel that when I get all of this, that you have no confidence that I'm ever going to get better. Is that true? Is it that you have no confidence in me at all? And then listen to what she says. And then it's like, okay, what else other than, you know, reading a dozen articles a day, what else can I do to help build more confidence in you? What am I not giving you? What am I not providing you? But there's something that's not happening. I don't know what it is, but there's something, and I don't know whether you're not engaging with her enough, you're not engaging deep enough with her. I don't know what it is, okay? We don't have the detail, but there's something missing that's leaving her out here just scared. So that's the way I'd approach it.
And I was thinking, I wonder if there's some things that you could, rather than her just sending things to you, like, is there like, well, let's listen to this podcast together, or let's just pick one article, pick your favorite, and let's discuss this, like you talked to earlier, slow everything down. I'm kind of going like, is there a way to slow this down? So,
Right. But also
well,
the idea of maybe going and doing something fun together, would that help
yes,
her?
yes, yeah. Not recover. I mean, I'm all in on recovery, and my life is not all doing recovery work. My outer circle stuff is, I go paddleboarding, I go hiking, I have socials, I have lots of friends. Like, I do things that are meaningful and engaging to me and fill my soul. And ultimately, do they help my recovery? Sure, but they're not just recovery work.
I think they're essential for your recovery. You
Mm-hmm.
have to have those things because that's the new Tammy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
that's who you are now. So, all
So I
right,
want
will
to
do.
answer the next two. They're paired, and it's
Okay.
about shame. Thank you for saying, let's focus on what's changing on the attic. Most of the time we are hearing the negatives, and that brings me to shame, and the shame leaves us unconnected. And let's talk
Um,
really briefly about
all
shame, because
right.
that's a whole nother
Again,
topic.
right.
Yes. Yeah.
One, okay. I don't believe most people who are going through betrayal. I don't believe their intent is to shame. I don't. Okay, though I think there's some, because again, they're so wounded,
Mm-hmm.
but I think for the majority, they're not. You are responsible for your own shame.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, not her. You are,
Mm-hmm.
and therefore you have to look at the body of work of what you're doing. Okay, I'm in recovery. I'm consistent. I'm becoming more emotionally developed. All right. I'm looking out for her first and foremost. All right. How will this action or inaction impact her? If I'm doing all those things, even when a negative comes at me, I could sit there and say, okay, focus on what is that negative? Why is she seeing it? Is it accurate? If it is accurate, again, we address it, but also go back and look at your body of work. And do you believe you're transforming? And if you do believe you're transforming, guess what? That negative that she threw at you, that can't define who you are because you are becoming different. And that's where you need to go with shame. And you may have to do that every day. You may have to spend time every day about, you know what? And I know people, they've created posters with collages of even they've taken images that they found in magazines and things like that online about why I should not feel shame. Because again, talking about their positives. And that's where I'd be looking for that.
Yeah. And I was like, nobody can cause me to feel shame. I choose shame. I can feel guilty, but I choose my emotions, my actions and reactions. So blaming somebody else for making me feel shame, nope. What they can say can be hurtful, whatever, or I can feel those things of shame, but how I choose to act on it, that's my choice. Otherwise, you're always
But,
at the pinball machine. You're always at the whim of everybody else. So
but,
but
but,
and I'm going to quick post Dr. Eddie, his work group on inner child, because somebody said, and this is a future question, but they said their CSAT recommended that they not do inner child work yet. I have no clue what that would be about, but that's a whole nother conversation.
because they don't focus on the past. They don't go back to that. That's not where their emphasis is. That's
After
why.
this person was in
That's
for a couple of
okay.
years. Yeah, no,
It's
but
okay.
like initially stop the problematic behavior and then start doing the deeper work. So I just put in the chat, I think. I just did it mindless. Yeah, the online work groups and Dr. Eddie's inner child work group is starting again in June. So I please encourage you
17.
to, yes, and
And
his
then
Why Men
Why
Struggle
Men
to Love
Struggle
too.
is starting June 13th.
There you go. So there you
So
go.
we do that. Yes, and you're
Options, I
right.
put them
It's
in.
Maslow, not Marlowe. And I knew what I'm saying,
Yes.
Marlowe. I'm like, that doesn't sound right. It's Maslow.
It
I
didn't,
don't,
but it wasn't clicking with
long
me either.
time since I looked at that stuff. So anyway,
So
I
thank
think
you, everyone. Go ahead.
we have a lot of
I
questions left. We have
I
questions from last time.
I
I
captured
think we
them
got to
all.
go and do maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours, and just do a Q&A next time.
Are you willing to do two?
We can do two.
Okay. See you in June for 2 hours. All right. All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Goodbye, everyone.